Howdy all. Happy Friday, or for those who like some of the wacky weed, happy 420 day. Uh,
I don't even. You see that doesn't even register in my world.
neither it doesn't for me either. But a friend of mine who needs the medicinal
Yeah,
for chronic headaches. They sent me a message and said happy 420 day, and I'm like, huh? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, I'm sure a few people could use that today after a tough evening yesterday. Okay, Russ, what do you got for the pre-show?
So my pre-show is something musical. I love when you follow a band and the band gets done touring, right? But they get sort of bored and they do another project and they do it under a different name. I love these kinds of underground albums. The front man of Green Day, Billy Joe Armstrong, just put one out he has a new band called the Longshot, and one of the members is a guy Jeff Matika, who always plays like on side stage. He's not like an official member of the band, but he's been with them forever, right? So he's pretty much been touring with them, I bet you, for 20 years.
Right.
So and then the other, I'm not sure who the other members are, right? But I've been hearing music leaked out, and the album comes out today. It's called Love Is for Losers, and it's what's great about it is it's just
isn't that true?
Yeah, but it's like a garage band mentality, and I love that in this era of overdone music and auto-tune and everything else, that you get a band like this, or even just a guy, Billy Joe, who, he's been around a long time, but he's just like this. He's always got to do something, and he's still creating, and I like that.
Yeah, it's funny, and I know that like when fans are watching games on television, they miss the in-game experience. Yeah. And one of the things like at Maple Leafs games this year that has been of a constant annoyance for me is that in the TV timeout in the third period, late in the third, I'd say maybe 7-8 minutes left to go in the third period, they always play Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who knows, and we talked about this a few days ago, that tradition came out of the Boston Red Sox playing it during the seventh inning stretch after they did Take Me Out to the Ball Game. They would do Sweet Caroline as sort of a sing-along. And now it's gone out over everywhere. And to me, I hate the Red Sox, but that's their song. So I think anybody who copies that is just being unoriginal. And
are you getting to the same point that I was at? Is there going to be are you meeting somewhere in the middle here?
What do you mean?
No, it just seems like you're on a different plane here, point wise. Are you?
Well, no. I'm just going at it a different way. No, I was commenting on the fact that Doc Emmerich apparently during one of the broadcasts was commenting on Sweet Caroline and why Toronto was doing it. And then I had somebody else contacting me and was asking me whether the Leafs were trolling the Bruins.
No, that was me. I was.
But somebody else did the same thing.
Somebody else did too. Okay.
Yeah, somebody else did the same thing. They were saying, "Are they trolling them?" And I'm like, "No, they've been doing this all year, and it's absolutely aggravating." So it's like, there are plenty of other songs out there you could do as a single. I mean, by the way, the other one that they do that's infuriating is Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. For some reason, Bon Jovi has got some love affair with the ownership has some love affair with him. They used to have a poster or something hanging from the rafters at Air Canada Center because Bon Jovi was helping them steal the Bills from Buffalo or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, but yeah, I mean,
that was when Donald Trump wanted to buy the Bills too.
Yeah, could have saved us a whole bunch of problems.
Right, what would you have done if Donald Trump bought the Bills?
I wouldn't have. Well, they would have moved out of Buffalo eventually. You know that.
Yeah, that's true.
That jerk. Anyway, so no, but Peter, and you've got. I mean, you covered the Jets. You've gone to many Jets games. It's like that all over the place. There are some things that are cool. There are some things that are get the crowd into it, and that's great. There are some things that are really annoying, and I need to go to the bathroom when they're going on.
What the thing that really, and I'm going to be a little critical of the Jets here because they're kind of a vanilla organization when it comes to this stuff. And there's some teams that do things really well. The thing that really annoys me with the Jets and teams is when you have these fake speakers and the fake decibel meter and it says "get loud." The crowds know when to get loud. They'll get loud because it's an organic thing. They're not fools.
Right.
They don't need you. But what you really need is you need some very well curated music that prompts it. And you have to be smart about it, and you have to time it. And you really need, like, the in-game production. You have to get a pulse for what your crowd wants.
Russ,
A lot of organizations miss that. They just think, oh, like, I mean, I never understood the Sweet Caroline thing. I had no idea it existed in terms of this Red Sox thing until we started talking about it here. But all of a sudden, it's all over Twitter now.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And if it's that prominent a feeling that it becomes a Twitter conversation with media, with fans, someone in the social media team of the Leafs has to be aware of this and refer that back to the production crew and say, guys, no.
They've been doing it all. They've been doing it all year, and it's really it's weak. I mean, I think I have no, like, it's not my place to have a problem with game ops. They can do what they want to do. That's fine. I just think, there's so much music that's Toronto and Canadian based that they could use. I mean, honestly, I think 50 Mission Cap, as I said, which is the Tragically Hip song about Bill Barocco. It's a little bit of a downer because it's about a guy who dies in a plane in 1951, but it's part of the Canadian mosaic, and it's something. It's sort of like the Stompin' Tom Connor song. Now people are sick of that because it's been done over and over done. But there is Canadian music that can be used in place of freaking Sweet Caroline. My goodness, I
don't get it. You know what? And and here's the thing. And I don't care that it's a different sport. If it's iconic to the Red Sox, leave it there.
Right.
They made it iconic for the reason how they did it. So
they're trying to catch on trendiness, Peter. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. But it'd be like another team using Chelsea Dagger as a goal song, from
right?
Exactly. Like, it's just, don't do it. It's theirs.
And just to your point about the artificial sound meter, Russ, do you remember at the World Junior when they did that and there were 2,500 fans in the crowd? I mean, Peter, it was like Slovakia and the Swiss, and there was the lower bowl wasn't even half full, and they do the get loud, people, like, jet engine, KeyBank Center, like, and I'm like, nobody's cheering. They're all watching. I think 6 people are watching this game. Nobody's cheering. What are you doing?
Well, that's the thing, though. They've been trained to put that sound meter and just go crank it, even if the sound doesn't jibe. One day, I would like to actually see the sound meter be realistic, but that'll never happen.
And last thing, this is well known by members of the Toronto media. One of the things that they do T-shirt contests. They do they have basically a Gatling gun type of thing where they shoot T-shirts to fans in the crowd, which is great. They also do parachutes. Somebody up in the lights, up in the roof, will drop parachutes with T-shirts attached to them.
Okay.
And Russ, I swear to God, there is a metal support. I think it's for something on the scoreboard that a parachute has gotten caught on that thing at least 10 times this year. They had a parachute that got attached to that for about a year, and they didn't remove it, and then they finally did. And now every single time
they probably went, "Hey Joe, can you go get that?" And he's probably like, "No." And then they probably
nobody's gonna go out and climb out on the thing to get it. They just get a stick and knock it off. But every single time they drop a parachute, it ends up snagged on this thing. It's hilarious.
Look, a little ineptitude is fun. Every once in a while, you see a little ineptitude, like when somebody gets their jersey retired for a team, and when they're trying to raise the banner, a lot of times it'll go crooked, and we all like that. Everybody likes a little laughter that way.
Yeah. Okay, let's start the show. Sure. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, April 20th, 2018.
I'm Peter Tessier from Spring Lake, Winnipeg.
What's a spring-like day for you in Winnipeg?
It's today is going to be 16 Celsius. That's about 60 degrees.
Oh wow, that really is.
That's nice. I'll take it.
A week ago, Russ, my whole lawn was still front lawn covered in snow. Now there's no snow on it.
Good. That's nice. You guys deserve that.
Yes.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and we're getting about the same weather, about 55, 60.
And I'm Michael Agello, and all I can say is the sun is out. Is it warm? Are you kidding? And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com.
You chose Buffalo, Mike. That's all I can tell you.
We will discuss the two games from last night, but we have to start with, it's not breaking news because it happened about an hour ago, but Bill Peters, the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, who we discussed with Kevin Allen earlier in the week about the window that he had. It was strange that Don Waddell, the sort of acting GM, executive vice president, or whatever the heck his title is in Carolina, came out early in the week and said, well, he's got this window and it's up on Friday and a couple teams have reached out. It was sort of like almost like promoting him to get a job someplace else. And that's what you sort of said, Peter, where it's like they're looking to get out of the last year of that contract. And Bill Peters resigned this morning, and lots of speculation from Darren Drager and Pierre LeBrun and a few other people that he will be named the next coach of the Calgary Flames. Now, let's start on the Calgary side here because they fired Glenn Gulutzan. They fired a couple assistant coaches. They had a very disappointing year. Came out after the season that, Sean Monahan had to have 4 surgeries to do repairs on both hips, on a wrist, on, it's like he probably shouldn't have played the last 20 games the way it sounded. But there's a lot of talent there. There's a really good defense there. And I've always said, Russ, that Bill Peters got a lot more out of the Carolina Hurricanes than was actually there.
Yeah.
So if you take that formula and move it to Calgary, I think that's a good hire because there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think he'll get them to be more defensive. I think he'll get them to be like a little bit grittier, just a little bit more hard to play against, because at times Carolina was like a pesky, hard to play against team. Yeah. And I think they'll do that. They'll probably make a couple of changes. Maybe they will move out someone like Sam Bennett. Maybe they'll look to, get bigger on some lines, faster on others. I think there's good hope there because the bones of Calgary are very good. And this is a good guy to bring in because he's a smart hockey guy.
Yeah. Now Peter, I talked to Sean Vetter, our mutual friend, because he follows the Flames very closely. And he said the one thing about Gulutzan that he had a major criticism about was that it was his lack of adjustments. When something didn't work, he never changed it. Like he had the defensive pairing of TJ Brody and Travis Hamonic was together for most of the year. They'd never worked. He didn't change them. Probably because, and I said to him, probably because they had Giordano with Dougie Hamilton, and that did work, and they didn't want to mess with the chemistry on that pairing. But that was the failing of Gulutzan, was his lack of adjustments. Peters is a pretty sharp coach, and like I said, I think he's done a pretty good job with not a lot of talent. There's a growing amount in Carolina, but I think this is a good fit if he does get that job.
Yeah, the thing that when you look at what Peters has done in Calgary is he worked with a organization that was very strong on defense, right? Had a solid defense. We often talk about that Carolina's got to take some of their defensive assets and move them. He also, with his with the analytics team, had Carolina doing a lot of really good things in terms of how they move the puck in possession.
Sure.
But they don't have the skill that Calgary has up top. So you take, you've got Jeff Skinner. I mean, and here again, I'm saying Jeff Skinner and
Aho and Teravainen.
Yeah, Teravainen. So there's your 3, and Aho should have come up, but it's not like the same names that you think. When you think of Calgary, you go Gaudreau, Monahan, Frolik, Backlund. And you sort of go down the list of who they have on their team.
Right.
You've got a nice mix of vets and youth and everything. And then you look at the defense. If Peters can instill some systems and some coaching into that defense core, there's no reason Jim Treliving can't go and shore up the one area that did cause some problems is getting a backup goalie that's going to give Smith some relief. Right? I
think they'll get one. Actually, would it shock you if they get Cam Ward to be their backup?
No, it wouldn't. I mean,
Peters been loyal to Ward, hasn't he? Like he is.
They're almost in a Russ. They're almost in a similar situation to Philadelphia is. They're waiting for either Parsons or Gillies to maybe be the number one. And I think Mike Smith has got another year left in his contract.
Yeah, Smith has another year, so you give Gillies another year down below. I'd rather him not backing up. I'd rather him playing full time and bringing Cam Ward on a 1-year deal. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's possible, but you know, with Calgary, I sense there's something missing. Maybe it's another scorer. And wouldn't it be ironic that, you know, Skinner's name has been out there in terms of trade talks for a while? Wouldn't it be ironic that if you know, they went in that direction? You know, there's always a situation where a coach comes in a situation like Calgary and maybe wants a player or two that he coached before. That might be a good fit. We'll find out during the summer. But I think, I mean, Calgary dramatically underwhelmed this year. I thought they were a playoff team. I liked their defense. I was disappointed with the way that they played, especially down the stretch. But not only Monahan's injury, but Smith's injury around the All-Star break, that killed them. So,
right. But let's talk about the other side of this, because right now, if you're a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes, you really have no idea what your team is going to do, what they're planning to do, the direction of it. There may have been, you know, Tom Dundon may have had a really nice talk 2 months ago, but now all that's changed. Like, you have no idea what's going on. If you work in that organization, you got to be a little nervous. I mean, Ron Francis is, you know, silent. He's still with them, but he's silent. And so you don't know what the direction is. Are they going to hire? Here's the thing. Here's what my thinking is. When back in the day when the Jets hired, you know, Bill Parcells and made him like head coach and executive, whatever. I kind of wonder now, is this what Carolina's going to do? Keep Waddell there to do the financial side, let Dundon do everything else, and bring in a coach in like a dual spot. I kind of wonder about that, because then Dundon will have more control over what he wants.
Back in the 90s, the Canucks sort of did this when they hired Mike Keenan, because Pat Quinn was the coach and general manager, and then he stepped aside. They got rid of Quinn. They had Rick Lay come in, and he pooped the bed with the team. They brought in Keenan, and what they gave him control over was player personnel as well. He wasn't a GM, but he was coaching player personnel. So he's the one who made the infamous Linden trade for Bertuzzi and stuff. And that's
feel like this, Peter?
What?
Doesn't it feel like this is what's coming?
Yeah, I was going to say to your point that it's happened. It doesn't happen very often.
No,
but it's happened. And with the right coach, it gives Dundon his role in the GM thing, where he was going to have the GM report to him. He's going to be able to play with his toy. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah,
it's a very bad idea.
I
sort of allow the coach to have some control and work in tandem with Dundon. Russ, I think you nailed it right there.
I'm skeptical that's the way that they're going, because what I think might be in the works here is, I mean, I don't see Dundon coming off of the, you know, paying a general manager $500,000 instead of, you know, like if the baseline's $1 million, he's paying him half of what, you know, what they're normally getting. But you're not going to get anybody unless, in spite of what the salary is going to be, unless they have some sort of control over the team and over the decisions. And if that's the case, I think he's clearing the deck with Peters to at least give that general manager the say-so of who's going to be the coach. I mean, if it's Dundon being hands-on like Mark Cuban, this is a disaster.
Sure. No. Listen, I'm not saying it's a great thing to do. I'm just saying this is my gut feeling that what they may do. But here's the thing, Mike. If what you're saying is true, they could have hired a GM weeks ago. There's definitely guys they could have hired and then let that guy bring in their own coach. There's no reason that it had to happen now.
Unless they're waiting for somebody who's with a team right now.
But somebody with a team is not taking that low salary. Let's be real.
Maybe. I mean, again, there are only 31 jobs available, so somebody might be desperate enough or might be willing to take that short-term hit financially.
Okay, so let's just play this devil's advocate game. Okay. Let's say I'm completely wrong, which, you know, isn't normal, but it could happen. And let's say they are waiting. They are waiting for someone on a team, and let's say that team makes it to the Stanley Cup. And let's say that the Stanley Cup runs till June 11th.
Yeah.
Are they really going to wait until like June 15th to announce a coach and a GM with the draft like 2 weeks after that?
Yeah, because right now, like all the drafting and all the scouting is still under the control of Ron Francis. That's why he's still around. Which is
disagree with everything Ron Francis does, and that is a risk that Tom Dundon is taking now.
Well, hey,
I would suspect that with what Dundon's actually allowed the budget to increase, which is under Eric Tulsky's analytics team, is that a lot of that is going towards what we've heard other teams are doing, which, and I can't remember what the letters stand for, but it's a PCS system, which is a projecting system for draft eligible players and how they project forward. And I would suspect that Dundon's put that extra resources into there for the scouting department, because it's pretty hard to develop a whole bunch of analytics when you don't have a coach and a GM to start finding players.
They get gutted when a new person comes in.
Your scouts can still do all the work based on what you're looking for to build the team, because he supported that.
And you never know, Peter. Tom Dundon could go in at the draft in Dallas, take the NHL Central scouting book and take a little pointer and go, oh, there's the guy I want. Go ahead.
Who does that? He's in trouble. But Peter, here's the other my retort to that. Yes, you could be right about that, but the idea is, if that's really what's going on, I don't know if that's really what's going on here, because a new GM could come in and completely disagree with how they're scouting and look at their draft board and say, I don't agree with this.
I understand that, Russ. I think that's a possibility. There's no way Dundon's not hiring someone who is seeing the same vision. Yeah, that's the problem. Is I think he's talked to people. He's been cheap, and they know that if I don't, and the people who he's talked to,
that makes it even a smaller group of people that he.
Right. I mean,
you've got the thinnest wedge of the available talent pie right there.
Yeah.
And if I had to put my hat on, I think he brings in a kind of thing where like an AHL coach, once the Calder Cup's done, I think he maybe gets that's where he ends up finding a coach. And I think he might even find a GM or something from there too.
Are we surprised? Yeah, I think you're right.
Because he's not going to pay.
Yeah. Now, are we surprised that we haven't heard from Tom Dundon today, considering his coach just stepped down? Like, I feel it's kind of odd that we're hearing from Don Waddell and not from him, since he's the lead guy. Like, if I'm a fan, I don't want to hear from Don Waddell. No offense to Don, he's a great guy. I kind of want to hear from the owner about this now. You've got rid of this coach who we all think is a pretty good coach. What's going on?
The owner's
PR 101 is, if you put the owner as the spokesperson and identified him as the decision maker,
right,
you don't back off from that in such a cut dry way without some reason. So they're not managing it well,
right?
Simply because there's now more questions to be asked than anything else.
Yeah, the owner's been
they made a huge mistake that way. And I think Dundon, maybe he just said, okay, fine, Don, you do this now and take over. I've stepped in it too many times.
Yeah,
but it's still not the way to handle it.
But it's a very peculiar time to say all of a sudden, okay, I've been front and center on everything, and now when my coach walks away, I'm gonna hide in the weeds somewhere. No, if you're gonna take the bull by the horns, you take the bull by the horns in everything. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, just one more thing on the coaching scenarios around the league. Dallas is without a coach, obviously. Calgary will wait on Peters. Russ, something came out yesterday about the Rangers and some college coaches. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so there was some scuttlebutt about that. I put up on Twitter literally on April 9th. I looked it up just to see that I would hire Jim Montgomery, who is the University of Denver coach. He's won championships. He's really worked well talent-wise. I mean, right. Henrik Borgstrom is his latest protege. I think he's the top guy, but Scott Sandelin also is the coach of Minnesota Duluth. They just won a national championship. So there's that. And then Quinn over at BC, Brian Quinn, I think there's a chance for that too.
Ted Donato.
I haven't heard Ted Donato.
What about the University of Minnesota coach?
No. I haven't. These are the three that we're hearing about, and it's not like they're the only three they're going to talk to. It's just like those are three that are sort of in the mix.
But it's peculiar. It's peculiar that it's all
Quinn. I said a different Quinn.
Yeah, it's peculiar that it's all college coaches though, and it's not. Not Tippett, not.
No, I think they're going to be in the mix too.
Okay.
I think these are just early guys that are identified. I think there will be others, and there was also, and I don't know if it was you and me, Mike, or somebody, but somebody threw out the name of Rick Bennett. Oh no, it was somebody else who I was talking to, who's the union coach, and he does have a Ranger background as well.
Well, I mean, that'll be interesting to see, and we may see other openings. I'll stick with my suspicion when it comes to Edmonton. When we were talking to Kevin earlier in the week, if they've already confirmed that they're bringing Chiarelli back, and maybe they're waiting to fire Todd McClellan until, say, Washington drops out and Barry Trotz is available. But I just can't see both Chiarelli and McClellan coming back after that tire fire of a season that the Oilers had. I really can't see that.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing to backtrack on the Rangers, we still haven't heard an answer from Lindy Ruff. Is he staying? Is he going? What's his new position going to be? Is he going to have any position? So Lindy Ruff, is still a Ranger.
Right.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy, too. I just want to point that out.
Speaking of weird situations and odd PR, let's talk about the Islanders. I'm not sure if you saw Chris Botta's tweet today.
No.
And basically he goes, was supposed to do the show yesterday after it was promoted on Twitter and Garth Snow found out. Isles made a call, segment canceled. Pathetically, he was worried about a harmless interview on the NHL's own radio network. This is the Snow culture, GM since 2006.
All right, so here's the thing. I mean,
those two don't get along.
They don't get along.
No, I know the history there, but regardless, I mean, this what?
Yeah, let's just say this: if Garth Snow's house burned down, Chris Botta would be there with marshmallows.
Right. Yeah, I can't get too overly into this one way or the other, knowing the history, right?
Yeah.
But is Garth Snow going on other shows and talking? No.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just weird. And again, it's bad. Like, there's a fan base, right? Again, going back to Hurricanes fans, what's going on? Islanders fans, what the hell is going on?
At least their owner has been talking. That's a little bit more than Carolina, but they're just as confused. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's
interesting. Sorry, just adding some more to the intrigue to the whole thing.
And 2 weeks after the regular season, we still haven't heard a peep out of either the Tavares camp or the Islanders camp regarding him. So I mean, it just leads everything to believe that's gonna go to the 5-day negotiating window in late June. Okay, let's get to the games last night, and I was at the. It was sort of a surreal thing with the Leafs and the Bruins, because right before game time, and I have to give the Bruins PR and the Bruins a lot of credit for not letting one little inkling out about Patrice Bergeron, because Bergeron talked to the media yesterday. Bruce Cassidy, mentioned about how important Bergie was to the team and this and that. And then lo and behold, the pregame skate comes out and he's not there. And then it gets tweeted out that he is out with an upper body injury for game 4. And at that point, Russ, I'm saying, here's your opportunity, Leafs, because, you were able to win in game 3 and shut down that line. But now, Riley Nash replaces Bergeron, and here's your opportunity especially for Austin Matthews, because everybody, the first 3 games, that was the big matchup, was Bergeron against the Matthews line. And that matchup, and the fact that the Leafs did not seize on that matchup, was central to the loss in game 4, the 3-1 loss. What did you think of the game, first of all?
Well, I mean, I watched the game and I felt like, it was close. I knew that Bergeron was out. I did feel the same way you did, that the Leafs didn't take advantage, but I also, after talking to you offline, felt the same way that you did. Like, hey, when you pick Chara and McAvoy to sort of take out Austin Matthews, that's going to happen. It's like the NFL. If the NFL can completely stop you, a great player, from producing in a game, and I am really dumbfounded on how many tweets from the media and otherwise that I've seen expecting a 20-year-old to not only lead the team, but on his back, take them to the next round, because it's not a singular sport, people. It's just, we don't see it. Did Wayne Gretzky do that at 20? Did he win the Stanley Cup at 20?
No, but he But he did beat the Montreal Canadiens, who were the 4-time Stanley Cup champions.
Did he also have Mark Messier with him? Did he also have?
He did.
He had a lot of different players there. A lot of great. He had Paul Coppy. He had a lot of great players there.
Now, Peter, my observation from the game, and I'll express my view after we get your opinion here, was the Bruins' big players without Bergeron came up bigger than they ever have in this series. Pasternak, Marchand, Chara, and Rask stepped up, and the big players on the Leafs. I think the only one who played, I think he was the best player on the ice last night, was Mitch Marner, and Marlowe played well. But other than that, they did not get big contributions and did not get an increased level of play from the guys that they needed to win. And that's, I think, what is at the heart of the disappointment right now in Toronto after Game 4, is that their big players did not show up. They showed up pretty small at a big time.
Yeah. I don't know what else to add to that, Mike. Like, I mean, you're right. And what more can you say? This is the thing. Like, compare it to Winnipeg. And I've watched that series a lot. I think Laine, I think Bufflin, I think Wheeler, I think they're big guys. Now, one thing, with the exception of Laine, all these guys are more experienced, and that's where I will be prepared to cut the Leafs some slack. Is that they're they're experienced, Mike, but they're not. There's only 2 players on the Winnipeg Jets who have any meaningful playoff experience, and that's Bufflin and Stastny.
Yeah,
that's it. Everyone else got swept in 4 games in 2015.
Well, Russ, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, the Leafs have more experience.
Well, this is the thing, and Russ, I said this on a podcast earlier this morning. Look at the 2 teams. The Bruins, as we've talked about, have a bunch of young guys, young talent that's really good. Donato, McAvoy, I think, is going to be a top pairing defenseman. Grzelcyk. Dalton Heinen. They have young players mixed in with their veteran group.
Jake DeBrusk is playing great.
Jake DeBrusk is playing phenomenal. The Leafs have the same thing, but look, the core group of the Bruins is the 2011 Stanley Cup winners: Rask, Chara, Bergeron, Marchand.
Yep.
The core group of the Leafs are 21: Marner, Matthews, Nylander. Morgan Riley's 24 years old. He's basically a veteran on this team. Other than the mixed in guys like Dominic Moore and Plekanec and Marlowe, the core group of the Leafs are youngsters, and that I think is at the heart of this.
It's too much to expect, and the defense is nowhere near what Boston's is, and that's really where in this league, if you don't have 4 that you are rock solid, can count on, and can roll for big minutes, you're not getting very far in the NHL playoffs. That's just the way.
The one thing that we're seeing, and it's not a secret, but before I get there, don't forget the core of this Bruins group went to the Stanley Cup final in 2013 and lost to Chicago.
True. Yep.
Yes.
This isn't, and this is a very experienced group, but the thing that we're seeing with the Leafs, and it's not a secret, but it should be everyone in the Leafs management team should be staring on the ice right now and going, how do we get 2 better defensemen to play on our team? How do we get them? Like, that is the whole. They've got to find a way to get. They've got a goalie. They've got forward skill. They've got forward skill. They've got skilled winger prospects coming out the wazoo in the organization. What they don't have is 2 stud defensemen.
Yep.
I think they have one that's probably a year or 2 away. They do in Liljegren, but
okay. A year or 2 away, but they need them now.
Right. They don't, and that's from years of not drafting them. And so, that's the thing. It's like they are in a spot where they're better than Edmonton because management filled in some gaps.
Yes.
But they're also in a spot where you're not getting to a conference final with a defense like that.
Well, here's the dichotomy of the 2 teams. The leading ice time for Boston was Zdeno Chara at 40 or 41 years old, played over 20, close to 28 minutes. and he was out there for most of Matthews' shifts. And him and McAvoy successfully shut down that line for the third time in third game of the 4 games in the series. And that's at a point, some of the frustration that's going on in Toronto is Matthews and Nylander not being able to score. I get that, but again, I'm
a future Hall of Famer, and McAvoy's a future All-Star for a lot of years.
Exactly. And I'm again, these players are not very experienced, and Matthews showed up in the playoffs last year against Washington. So I don't think this is he's not prepared to play playoff style hockey, because I think he is.
Like, who's the Leafs shutdown pair?
Well, that's my point. The leading ice time player for the Maple Leafs last night on the blue line was Jake Gardiner, the player responsible for the loss, because his pinch late in the second period and an offensive draw with maybe he thought, because they was off of an icing and there was a tired Brad Marchand and Pasternak out there, that he could get away with pinching at the blue line. Well, he didn't get away with it. He got beat to the puck by Pasternak. Pasternak goes down the ice and sets up Marchand for a goal that hits the camera in the net. It's baffling. This guy can, I have a long history with Jake Gardiner in terms of being a critic of him and him being an analytics darling. But this is the problem. I had people yesterday sending me tweets. Well, the Leafs defense is never going to be good enough if they're playing Roman Polak. Your problem is not Roman Polak playing 14 minutes on the bottom pairing. Your problem is having a guy who cannot play defense playing 27 friggin' minutes. That's your problem.
I'm not going to say they're a direct comparison, because they're not. But the argument you make about Gardner being an analytics darling is a lot like Byfuglien, Dustin Byfuglien. Love him, but people who just watch the game and use the eye test, they're ready to put screwdrivers in their eyes sometimes with the things he does.
Right.
And the interesting
thing is, he has a physical component. He
has a physical component, isn't it? So and he has a size thing. Okay, so they're not the same player, but the same criticisms that happen are there. Yeah. And I just put an article out yesterday about how well Byfuglien's playing by not being Dustin Byfuglien, Maurice has got in his head, or Huddy has got in his head. Who's the guy who's going to get in Gardner's head and change? No. And is it possible?
No,
I don't know if it's possible. He's always going to be a 45, 50-point guy. He is basically a high risk taking offensive defenseman. And if you're going to have success, you have to pair him with someone like a Nicholas Yarmulson, who thinks nothing about anything but defense. So at least there's somebody back. And the problem with that play the other day was Zaitsev is not a lockdown defensive guy either. So I'm not sure he made the right choice.
Yeah. And Russ, either. I was talking to a media friend up in the press box, and I was railing about Gardner's bad defensive play, and he brings up offensive defensemen of the past like Brian Leetch, like Paul Coffey, and how Brian Leetch was paired with a defensively minded Jeff Bukaboom, and Coffey was paired with Kevin Lowe, and I'm like, yeah, but at a certain point, even Phil Housley in his career learned what to do and learned how to play defense. And the problem is that Jake Gardiner is 27 years old, and he has been able to temper some of the mistakes, but he continues to make the same mistakes that he made as a 21-year-old. He is what he is. He's never going to change. And if it's on your bottom pairing, or if it's a number 4 who gets 19 or 20 minutes, fine. But when you're playing him for 27 minutes, you're going to expose your team to what happened yesterday.
Here's my retort, though. To hear Brian Leetch's name come up just makes me sort of I almost vomited, like it pushed up a little bit. And the reason is, if he was bad defensively on a play, he had elite speed to catch up and get a stick on it. Gardner doesn't have that kind of speed. He has decent speed. He doesn't have that kind of catch-up speed.
Yeah. No, he has pretty good speed, Russ.
But catch-up speed, it's different.
Right, and that was apparent on the goal yesterday. But his problem is anticipation. He gets caught flat-footed, and you have to give the Bruins credit yesterday, because what they did was they cut off the stretch pass that Gardner has been doing and Riley's been doing all season. That dump up the middle, sort of the alley-oop pass. They cut that off. They sat back, and the Leafs had no answer to that. So, we move forward in that series. It's going to be Game 5 on Saturday. Bergeron will be back. Kadri will be back.
Game 5 or the final game of that series? Which one?
Well,
is it?
I don't know. I mean, if you ask me to predict, I mean, I would say that I don't see it's a great chance of the Leafs coming back to Toronto, but you can't say that it's impossible because I mean they do have the talent. So I'll keep an open mind, but I'm not expecting this series to continue past Saturday night. So
I don't. I think it could.
I originally picked
but
7.
I don't expect you to agree. Here's the thing.
I think the Bruins are wearing them down, and I think the Bruins actually are wearing down the coach too. I think Mike Babcock, in his post game with his weird praise of a team that really kept it close for a little while, but didn't have much punch in the third period, was kind of weird, and I think that's going to work against him actually.
Well, so here's the thing, and I think it goes to the bigger point that Mike, you talked about how earlier on this, like, because there's a lot of things flying around the Leafs. Well, Matthews isn't playing, all these different things. The problem is the Leafs can't keep themselves in the game. And that's, I don't see it a problem as scoring because it's not like Boston's out, like they only won 3-1. It's not like Boston's like blowing the doors off them. If that keeps it as a 2-1 game or a tie game, depending. And again, I didn't see the game, so I'm not aware of how the goals happened and the situations underneath and what led to them. But if there isn't the Gardner pinch gaff, if there isn't maybe another defensive mistake and the game is held there, then the way that game unfolds at a tie game later in it is far different than a game of a 2-1 or a 3-1 game. And it's like, it's the Leafs. It's not like Boston's outscoring the problem. Like,
no, but I think I'll say the difference, Peter. I think you're overthinking it only in the sense that Boston can still shut down a facet of the Leafs game. The Leafs cannot shut down any facet.
I said this. I said this after the game last night. The Leafs and Babcock, he has been stressing them playing a strapped down, more conservative, defensive style, two-way hockey type of game, especially for the playoffs, because he knows that is what is needed to win. The problem is that the personnel on the team do not match that style. He's trying to get offensively gifted players, and granted, offensively gifted players can learn how to play two-way hockey, and I think Matthews and Nylander and Marner are going to have to do that throughout going further in their career for them to be able to win. But he's been accentuating that point about playing that two-way style, and they really throughout the year have not been successful doing it. They only, they rely on that offense, and then when they fall behind, they have to open up the throttle to catch up. And their only option now, down 3-1, is to open it up and try to get Boston to play that type of series. I think Boston's too disciplined to do that, but that's something that has to be remedied in the offseason. If you got players that don't fit that style, you better get players that can fit that style. That's all I have to say. Yeah. All right. The other game last night was Columbus and Washington, and it bucked the trend of every other series that was 2-1 in the sense that the team that was behind even the series, and this has been 4 games now, Russ, where the home team is lost. If I was a season ticket holder, I'd be asking for a refund and losing my mind. 4 goals for the Caps. Bobrovsky was big in the first 2 games. Can't really blame him here, but not as big at home.
No, not as big at home, but the team just, again, goes into this shutdown, can't score kind of mode. And at the end of the game, John Tortorella says, well, we laid an egg. Like, that's it. Like, that's his answer to the press. And it's like, I'm sorry, John, you got to give us more than that. It's a home game. You had a chance to go up 3-1. You basically gave a team that was struggling life.
A life. Yeah.
They gave him life. And I really do think that the Jerabek out and Christian Juice in has made a massive difference in the Caps defense, because Jerabek was getting victimized in almost every game, right? For at least one play a game. Now that's not happening. Ovechkin's gotten hot. Oshie looks like he's heating up a little. Holtby's sort of in there now, right? He's settled in. this is now not looking great for the Jackets. I'm still going to stick with the Jackets, but the problem is now when the coach just says at the end of the game, well, we laid an egg, I don't know, man. If that's going to be the best you've got, I'm sure he said something else behind closed doors, but he better get real tactical about this, or I don't know if his team's recovering, because we don't know how the Jackets can come back in a series. They really needed to be up 3-1, I think.
Now, Peter, I was concentrating more on the Leafs game. I didn't really get a chance to see anything more than a couple highlights from this game, and I know you were the same. But looking at it, it's like, I mean, Columbus had a real opportunity here, up 2-0, and really, I think Washington was questioning, after all the playoff chokes that they've had throughout their, throughout the last few years, being down 2-0, the Grubauer-Holtby situation, all the things that were going on. Now I think they have to be infused with a lot of confidence, winning 2 games on the road and going back home with Holtby playing, better hockey and them in a fortuitous position.
Yeah, it's to come out and get the OT win that was huge for Washington in terms of just their general playoff history. They needed that. Then to come back and then what it was, 4 goals last night.
Yeah.
Right. Like to deal with that and then put the game away. Wow. What a momentum shift. Right. Like, I mean, the momentum shift between the first 2 games and the second 2 games heading back to Washington tied is absolutely incredible for the Caps. And I wouldn't be surprised, like, come Saturday, that they really start rolling. Like, it's, this could be exactly what they needed to go into Columbus, get a gutty overtime win, and then just kind of, lack of a better term, control the game entirely yesterday, and then boom, come home. Watch out, the Caps, it could be that gorilla off the back kind of thing.
No, Russ, by the way, Joe Haggerty just tweeted out that it's not guaranteed that Bergeron will play Game 5, that, with them up 3-1 in the series, that they may rest him for Game 5. And, just. Yeah,
I think that's a possibility.
They're playing with house money, so why not?
Yeah.
I just thought about this, because you got Washington and Columbus tied 2-2. You've got, and I'm not writing off the Leaf fans, but I'm just saying it looks like right now, all directions point to a Boston-Tampa divisional final in the Atlantic. How good is it to be the Pittsburgh Penguins right now? You're going to have Washington and Columbus kick the crap out of each other, probably go 7, and then when Pittsburgh does face them, it's going to be a team that they know that they can beat, because they've beaten both of them year after year after year. And then on top of that, they're going to have Boston and Tampa beat the crap out of each other in a 7-game series, and they'll just be sitting there waiting for them.
Yeah, I will tell you, I don't think they spend a lot of time thinking about that. I don't. But I think talking about that, we could see that path. They're really an interesting team, because, again, like after the win the other night, you got Sidney Crosby in the locker room talking about passing Mario Lemieux for I think it was most points in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Which is crazy, but Mario also had injuries and disease and all that, right? So, but still amazing for Crosby. You got Malkin sitting next to him talking. Phil Kessel's out in the hallway. He's visiting with family. Like, it couldn't be any looser for them after a game like that, because they've all been there and they expect this, and Matt Murray expects this, and Sullivan's, not sitting on his laurels. He's actually each game trying to, work hard at a game plan. And right now they're playing a team that they clearly have overmatched. The Flyers look like they're going to play Robert Hogg tonight, and that's fine. But the problem is they're putting Hogg in and they're taking Sanheim out. Brandon Manning stays, apparently. And so that's something where you have to scratch your head from the coach. Elliott's still going to be in there. Like, this is a perfect scenario for Pittsburgh. They're like, hey, we know if we win, we get to rest after this. That's really all they care about.
Yeah, and Peter, if the Penguins do continue further in the playoffs, we'll get this insightful commentary from continuing insightful commentary from Pierre McGuire, who said on Phil Kessel after scoring in game 4 against Philadelphia, that he hadn't missed the game in 8 seasons, and said, "There's a lot of strength and conditioning coaches out there saying, how's that happening?"
I don't think anybody's asking that question.
You know what?
Yeah, no, I mean,
you can say whatever you want about Phil Kessel. And I remember when he got traded, I didn't think it was going to work out. I was 150% times 1,000 wrong.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to say about Phil Kessel, if you're making a comment about his fitness, his physique, or whatever, you're an idiot. He's proven everyone wrong and given the respect he deserves.
Okay, I was a critic of him in Toronto, but not him as a talent. Him as a talent, it was him being signed like he was a franchise player. When I think he's one of the best complimentary players in the league. But honestly, the guy's won 2 Stanley Cups. I'm sending him a book of coupons for hot dogs. Yeah. I don't care. He's won
like $8 million. He doesn't need coupons.
Yeah, no. He's an elite player.
Everybody needs coupons.
Aaron McGuire, get over it.
Everybody needs coupons. Just ask my mother. Okay, so 2 other games on the docket for so Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. There are some reports that Couturier skated. Please.
I think he'll play. I do.
On well, he just joins everybody else on one leg in that series. And so have we heard anything about who's starting in goal? Is it Wayne Stevenson maybe, or
no? It's Wayne Stevenson is not available. No, it's Elliott. Like that's
Bob Froese.
Bob Froese is not there. Bob Froese is a minister now, so he's busy with that calling.
Rick St. Croix, Roman Chechmanek.
No. That's just it is what it is. There is a little bit of breaking news. Amanda Stein put it up on Twitter that Sammy Vatanen has not joined the team yet in Tampa.
Oh.
Now, if the Devils don't have him, man. Just turn
stick a fork in him.
But I think that's the case anyway. But that Kucherov hit, you could make a case that Kucherov hit was pretty close to what Doughty's hit was.
But I thought he caught more shoulder.
So did I. I think that was the only difference, Russ, was the fact that it was a continuation of the hit. He hit the shoulder first, and it went through to the jaw. And
I'll tell you this, and this was fascinating for me, and this is why somebody might hire Scott Stevens as a coach very quickly. He was on NHL Network yesterday, basically diagramming how to hit the guy legally and dislodge him from the puck. And I'm thinking, boy, if I'm a coaching staff, I might be watching him on NHL Network right now to see how to do it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
without giving them a concussion or with.
He didn't say.
Yeah, that he doesn't care about.
But all he kept saying is, this is how you do it, and it's a legal hit. And the interesting thing is, Scott Stevens is a very smart guy, and he does have that mind. And if nothing else, even if you hire him as a coach, your defense is going to be tough because they're going to learn some things that they've never learned before. And that's going to probably make him valuable on the open market at some point someday.
Scott Stevens talking about hitting clean is like having Brian Marchment talk about knee repair. It's like Jake Gardner talking about defense.
No, but it's like hiring somebody who's a thief to be a hacker for the government. Like it's like that.
Yeah.
Okay. The other 2 games, Peter, Minnesota and Winnipeg. Morrissey suspended 1 game. It sounds like Tyler Myers is going to play.
Yep. So you've got your right side intact of Trouba, Buff, and Myers. We'll see what happens on the other pair. I haven't seen pairings yet, but I haven't been checking. All I've heard is that he's in. So I'm not sure what they're doing on the left side with Morrissey out. It's believed that Sami Niku is going to play. He's been recalled.
Okay.
He had 1 NHL game prior to the end of the season. He scored a goal in it. The prevailing thought amongst Jets fans, or at least the ones that are very vocal, is that if you're going to replace Josh Morrissey, you replace him with the most Josh Morrissey-like player. And that would be Sami Niku, regardless of experience. So
let me ask you this question, Peter. If for some reason the Jets lose tonight, they're at home and everybody's looking at Minnesota as a wounded duck, and let's say they lose, what will the fan base, what will the temperature of the fan base be like then? Even though they'll have a 3-2 lead, will they be losing some confidence at that point if that happened?
The Jets would, the fan base would be, I think, be okay. They'd be disappointed because they're looking for a Friday night party.
Right.
I think the confidence level is fine. Morrissey will be back. And the Jets lost 3 games once all season. They're not going, and I think the fan base believes that they're not going to lose 3 straight to give up a 7. Not that it can't happen.
Right.
But given that there's no Suter, no Parise, a one-leg Spurgeon.
This is a weird sport. Like,
anything could happen. Dubnyk could all of a sudden go lights out.
Right.
And next thing you know, you could fire a goal. It could happen, but I think there'll still be optimism. They'll just be disappointed and look forward to Game 6.
And finally, the last game, the 9:30 game, Avalanche and Predators. Predators will be without Ryan Hartman. From what I heard yesterday, Russ, that
Sam Girard, it's a game time decision. That's a big deal too.
Right, but from what I also heard is Andrew Hammond is going to start over Bernier.
Sorry.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I mean, not casting aspersions at Andrew Hammond, but now you're on goalie number 3.
Yeah.
Without Eric Johnson, maybe without Girard. I mean,
no, but this is like if the Hamburglar quit McDonald's and Burger King hired him. Like, that's what this is like.
Well,
this is
the guy from the Verizon commercials is now doing Sprint commercials.
I know, but he's younger.
Donald Trump was a Democrat, now he's a Republican.
Andrew Hammond, it's a lot of years since he's been successful. Like, this is a real desperation move.
Well, they've got nothing else.
Well, they have no choice.
They should go with Bernier. I don't see the positive.
I don't know if he's hurt. If he's hurt,
He left the game injured.
Yeah.
So
but you're saying if he's healthy, he's gonna play.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, so okay. Great show. We will be back on Monday. I may be up in Toronto. We'll see. For Peter Tessier,
Mike, you don't seem very confident.
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to the Leafs.
No, but you're going to have to write an article. You're going to write an article that when you wrote your last article, were you writing it that the series will continue, or are you writing it that it's probably over? You had to go one way or the other.
No, I wrote that they missed. I wrote that they missed a golden opportunity, and that
no guts.
No, it's the truth.
No guts.
For Peter Tessier and Russ Cohen, I'm gutless Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.